Those of you who watched my previous videos about how to 5-lug swap an E30 were probably screaming at the screen saying, but you've forgotten the sway bars. Well, actually I am planning to fit sway bars to this car, and that's actually today's goal. Before I show you which anti-roll bar kit I've selected and fitting it, let me give you a quick rundown on where I'm actually up to with the project. So you've probably seen previously that I have 5-lug swapped this car front and rear, and on the front I'm using E36 non-M3 parts combined with SRS Concept front control arm bushings to correct the position of the wheel at the front. I also installed HSD Monopro coilovers, which are technically E36 coilovers but with E30 top mounts. So that's where I'm at on the front suspension currently. The front subframe and Z3 steering rack, which I was recently battling with, are also back in the car, of course. And the front subframe is of particular interest today because if you remember way back, I welded on a reinforcing plate kit to that front subframe, which included the front anti-roll bar mounting tabs that are on the subframe. If you are planning to upgrade the front anti-roll bar on your E30, you really do need to reinforce those tabs on the subframe. They're known to very commonly rip off with the extra stress of a stiffer bar. I will put a link to the ones I used previously because it was a good kit and they welded on quite nicely, and it's put us in a really good position where I can just crack on today and fit an anti-roll bar instead of messing about. You might be able to weld the reinforcing tabs in situ, but I was lucky enough to have it off the car at the time. This being a lowly 316i poverty spec example of an E30, had a very skinny front sway bar as standard, I think 18.5mm in thickness, and no rear bar at all. So fitting an uprated anti-roll bar kit should definitely transform the handling of this car. As standard, in my opinion, the E30 has more boat-like handling than is ideal. And when I had a nice 318IS in previous years, I remember that rolled a lot in the corners, and that was an E30 spec'd with the proper sport suspension with the bigger front struts and all of that. So I do have a decent reference point to where we're starting off here, and I will definitely revisit this in the future when the car's on the road and give you a comparison of how it drives compared to a standard sport spec E30. For this E30 build, I do want it to be a fun little B-road missile, basically. So I want it to be not so stiff it rattles your teeth out, but firm, confidence inspiring and responsive. So I think an uprated anti-roll bar kit should make a big difference to that. So now let me bring in the kit I've selected and show you what's included with it. There's a big clue written on this box. So this is Eibach's E30 anti-roll bar kit, and it's the one that comes with all the rear hardware, which is really useful for people like me who have an E30 that didn't even have a rear bar from factory. I'll make sure to include a link in the description to this so you can check it out. I actually purchased this via Vision Racing Developments, and thanks to Rich for sorting it out for me. That was actually probably about 2 years ago when I was naive in thinking this project wasn't going to be so drawn out. It should be a 20mm front and a 16mm rear, and as you can see both are adjustable, which is handy. Now I'm just going to confirm the thickness using some spanners. 20mm there, that's straight on. 16mm, straight on. I was thinking it might just be the powder coat that's preventing this spanner from going on there. It's definitely a 20. 22 is loose. So it feels more like it'd be a 21. Quite unusual. So I'm just going to check it with this broken digital vernier, or very near as I'm going to call it, because it's not really that great. Now let's just see what it measures up at. So to me it's looking like 21. Which is strange because it's supposed to be 20. I think, factoring in the powder coat, it seems like I've just got a very slightly thicker bar than I anticipated. But let's call that a bonus, I guess. Even though it looks like I've got a 21mm bar rather than a 20, there are actually more hardcore versions of anti-roll bars available, such as the white line kit, which I believe is a 24mm front. Now, I think that's going to be likely overkill, because in truth, I think it's very unlikely I'm going to use these two bars on the stiffest setting anyway, so I think I'm going to be satisfied with this. As for the fitting kit, it's fairly comprehensive, to be honest. You've got the front anti-roll bar bushings, which are polyurethane, you've got the rear ones, which are good, and you've got the brackets, which will be missing if your E30 doesn't have a rear bar. Looks like OEM parts, that, which is nice. You've even got the two little screws which hold these on, and they've got a slot cut in them, so when you're screwing it into a hole that's never been screwed into before, you should find it going much easier, which is nice. You've also got the rear anti-roll bar links. The only thing it is missing are the nuts off the links that screw onto the rear arms, so I'll have to find two appropriate nuts for those, hopefully nylock, so they don't come out, but generally pretty good, even the grease. As for the fronts, I did myself a big favour in the past, and I have powder coated these front bushing brackets. There's probably a proper name for these, but it's evading me right now. And I even plated the hardware, so that's all ready to go. Regarding the front anti-roll bar links, this is a point of interest that I'm just going to explain to you now. The E30 nerds among you will have already noticed that these are not E30 front anti-roll bar links. The standard front ones are a bit more like these rear ones with this strange fork. These are actually rear anti-roll bar links from a Ford Mondeo Mark III estate, so year 2000 to 2007. And when used on the front of an E30, these should be a good upgrade from standard, and they're slightly shorter, which helps account for lower ride heights. One point to note, while I know these do work as a great upgrade for a normal 4-stud equipped E30, I might not be able to use them. That's because I used SRS Concept front control arm bushings to correct the wheel's position in the arch when I did the 5 lug swap. So this quite noticeably rotated that front control arm around. So it's possible I won't be able to use the standard E30 anti-roll bar linked location, but we'll only really know about that when the anti-roll bar is in position and we can look. So stay tuned to find out if this works or not. If it doesn't work, my plan B will be to use E36 style sway bar links, the type that connects between the strut and the anti-roll bar. The tab to connect these did come with the HSD Monopro coilovers, but I've left it off hoping to not need it. Hopefully I'm not going to regret that now. Right, so let's crack on and get this kit installed. I'm going to start with the front bar, because I'm very keen to find out if my links are going to work, and because the car's got no engine in it, you should have a good view. If I take the wheels off, I think I should just be able to thread this through from one side around the suspension. Let's find out. Right, so threading the bar in was really nice and easy, which is the good news, but the bad news is I seem to have hit the first snag on this. Now, the bushings go onto the bar nice and easy, and I've got these brackets in position. The problem is I just can't seem to close this up because I need to get the bolt through there, but there's just no way on earth that's going to get close enough for me to put that bolt through and tighten the nut onto it. It's almost like the bushing's just a bit too large. I think what the real issue is that this polyurethane bushing has absolutely no crush to it at this point, whereas the original rubber bushings would have crushed up nicely in there and you could have bolted it through. So I'm just trying to work out what the best route to take is. I'm thinking I might see if I can put a jack under there and try and raise this up to force it closed enough to put the bolt through. But I might have to resort to trimming the bushing a little bit, which I'd rather avoid, but we'll figure it out.
The whole of the weight of the car that's there is on it now.
Nope, you're not aligned. Right, I've just whipped it back off because, as you may have noticed, I hadn't greased this when I've put it in, but at least we can confirm it now fits. Now, I have sanded a fair amount off this, and you can compare it to an unsanded one, but it still fits incredibly snugly, and I'm having to use a lot of force to get it in place, which I guess is how it's supposed to be. So whilst it's off and not greasy, I'm going to use the opportunity to use this as a template to sand this one down to match. Then I'm going to grease them up and get them on. we go. Well, getting that front bar on was a bit more difficult than I expected, but it's on perfectly now after trimming down these bushings, so I'm quite happy with that. And looking at the position for where the link needs to go between, I think we might be getting lucky here with this Mondeo link. Seems like once it's in position, it should be pretty good. Now, there's obviously the adjustment on the Eibach anti-roll bar, and I'm planning to start with the softest setting, which would be in the outermost hole, which obviously gives the link a bit more leverage on the bar. So I'm going to start with that, and let's get this in place and see how it looks. Well, I'm really happy with how my Mondeo front anti-roll bar links fit there, and the bar's even quite parallel to the ground right now, which is quite a good sign because that's the ideal situation for it. Obviously, when I drop the car onto its wheels and the suspension's not at full droop, I suspect it will be pointing up a little bit. Once this car's fully set up, I may consider switching these out for adjustable ones that I can dial into perfection. But looking at this, I think this will be fine to run with for now at least. Right, so looking at threading this rear bar into position. Now, there does look to be room above the diff, which is handy, but this spring and the strut are kind of obstructing it, and with it being such a long and awkward thing, it's going to make life very difficult. So I'm hoping if I can just drop this spring out by undoing this bottom end of this strut, I'll be able to thread it through. Let's see how that goes. So that's the spring back on now, but with it off, I could feed it through really quite easily. Dare I say it, this is actually looking like it should be a doddle. So next thing to do is get the bushings on and the brackets, which appear to fit really nicely, even though there's never been a roll bar here before. Even the little screws in nicely into the hole. Right, so that's the Eibach front and rear anti-roll bar kit installed on the E30, and I'm quite pleased with how it's come out. The front was a bit fiddlier than it first appeared with those bushings that needed trimming down, but now it's in situ, it looks really good. And the Mondeo front links seem really great as well. When the car's back on its feet with an engine in the bay, so it's got the correct front weight, I'll be able to see just how parallel that bar is to the ground using those links. And fingers crossed it's a goer and I can keep with them because they seem really good quality. The standard E30 links that came with the kit that I used on the rear seem to be a good height. They're drooping a bit with no wheels on at the moment, and I suspect when it's down on the ground that's going to bring it back to about parallel. Hopefully there's not enough suspension travel for them to actually hit the boot floor, but I'll have to look at that a bit closer when the car's on the ground. I obviously can't comment on the performance of the larger anti-roll bars yet. That'll need to wait for a future video, so do make sure you subscribe if you're interested in hearing my comments about handling. I'll also make sure I link everything I've used down in the description, and if you found this video helpful then please make sure you leave us a like and consider subscribing, but thank you very much for watching anyway.